This is the security mashup track, and the title is "The Emperor Has No Clothes: The Current State of the CISO." And I think these gentlemen need no introduction. So, good. And this track concludes at 3:15. So,
thank you, sir. Welcome. We appreciate it. So now tell us about the disclaimer.
Well, it's an important disclaimer to realize that we may not have the same opinions by the time we get done that we're starting with right now. And so
I guarantee you that we won't have the same opinions.
No value at all. And you're getting everything you paid for with it. So go ahead, Rick.
I guess we should introduce ourselves.
Yeah, there's a previous slide, but I'm Todd. That's Rick.
There we go. Okay.
We're here doing our stuff.
So I'm the Chief Security Officer for N2K. It's two companies merged last year, the CyberWire, which is a podcasting company, and CyberVista is a training company, and they merged because we think those two things go together, right? And I'm the Chief Security Officer of that company, and I'm also a podcaster on the CyberWire.
Yep, and I'm Todd Inskeep. Been in security for a long time. I was at NSA for a dozen years, Bank of America for a dozen years, Booz Allen's commercial consulting business for 10 years, and a couple of years ago I decided to go out on my own with a business focused on fractional CISO work and really helping the board, the business executives have an interface layer and somebody they can talk to speak to the technology teams and really translate back and forth between the business, what they need to know about security risk, and the technology teams implementing process, people, and products.
So Todd and I have known each other forever. Okay, we worked together how many years ago? Many years. Okay.
5 or 6.
5 or 6. He and I helped co-found the Cyber Threat Alliance, which is the information sharing and analysis organization for security vendors. Right. So that's how we got to know each other. That's your disclaimer. All right.
How many people here are currently CISOs, deputy CISOs? Wow. Good,
CISOs first.
Good size.
CISOs first.
CISOs first.
Okay.
Deputy CISOs, couple, okay. Want to be a CISO in the future?
They're coming to this to figure it out.
Virtual CISO, fractional CISO, yeah, fractional CISO, you're a CISO. You're helping a company manage this stuff. So, okay, we'll help all of you who think you want to be a CISO. You'll have a better idea at the end of this. No.
How many people are doing the CISO job and don't have the title? See, that's another bit there. Okay.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. How many people have all the responsibilities and don't have the pay of a CISO? Exactly. All right, so this is about the Emperor Has No Clothes, and you may ask yourself, why this title? Because this thing really started about a year ago. Todd and I were having an argument about the future of CISOs at RSA last year, right? And how I was disappointed that it wasn't where I thought it was going to be. So we said, hey, this might make a great RSA talk, so that's what this is. All right, but my argument here is the CISO or the CSO or however you want to call them, they have a title that sounds pretty impressive, okay, but we really are not in charge of anything, okay, or the king of nothing, right? There are all these other C-level organizations or C-level titles, okay? Those people have those titles, but the CISO has the title and nothing else, all right? And we're not part of the leadership team for the most part. We're not part of the executive staff, right? We're VPs, maybe managers. We report to those people, but we're not part of the executive staff. And that was my argument with Todd, was that I wanted to be, 20 years ago when I started, 30 years ago when I started, I thought CISOs were going to be there by now, and we're not there. And I don't think we're going to be there anytime soon, right? So we definitely report to those guys, but we're not part of that leadership team. What we are is pushed down in the bureaucracy, mostly, okay? For all the CISOs that are here, how many of you work for the CIO? Okay, how many work for somebody on the executive staff? How many are pushed even further down that you're not part of that at all? Yeah, a couple, right? So that's kind of where it is, right? And we're disconnected from physical security. When I started 30 years ago, I thought the security officer was going to be in charge of all security of the organization, not just the IT part, but all of it, and that hasn't manifested either. Now, everything I'm saying here, there are definitely exceptions. There are people here that have these jobs, right? But they are in the minority. Most CISOs don't have all of that responsibility. Like I said, exceptions, right? And some of us have the VP title, meaning we get paid like a VP, all right? So that's not bad, okay? And some of us even report to the board of directors on a regular basis. So for the CISOs here, how many of you do a report for the board of directors all the time, regular basis? How many do it more than once a year? Okay, if we would have asked that question 5 years ago, that would have been a lot less number. So that's positive, right? Do you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's once a year is still actually higher than a lot of people are doing it. And sometimes you get quarterly. Monthly is still very, very rare. But at least once a quarter, something like that.
Wait, I'm getting my photo taken. Okay.
Walk like an Egyptian.
Hollywood. I know, I don't care. Okay. Who cares, right?
We can send him copies. So. Come on, Rick. We've only got 180 more slides.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, my slide presentation technique is I need 500 slides for an hour, so you're on slide 3. We're going to get there to the end, okay, I promise, okay? All right, so the idea of CISOs reporting to the board is not a best practice, I would say. We're moving in that direction, so that's a positive thing. But most CISOs only have the title and are not that important in the industry. Mostly senior security leaders in the company without top-level business responsibility. Now, there are those, I asked this question, okay, how many have the responsibility but don't have the title or the VP level, okay? Those are managers and directors. Again, show of hands, how many people are like that? Right, so there's a bunch of those folks too. They do the job and are not getting paid for it. And that's what you got? That was your pose?
Nothing. I got nothing.
So I just want everybody to know that
I know where my skills are.
I win, okay? I win this competition. All right, thank you, ma'am. Now, those folks that have the managers and the directors titles, you know, they tell people in groups like this, well, I do the CISO job, but I don't really have the title. And that's kind of a normal thing we see at conferences and things. But it's not official. And just to give you some evidence about that, this is just one little anecdotal piece of evidence, okay, about how important the CISO is to all the companies around the world. We're just going to look at the web pages of some of the most successful companies just to see if they list the CISO as part of the team. Not that they're part of the executive staff, just to see if they're, you know, part of the team, all right? So we're going to look at Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 500 financial, all right, and then the top 5 cybersecurity vendors. Let's just see what their web pages say. Did you want to comment on that at all?
No, I think go for it. I think the evidence is really clear. Go ahead and pop your button a couple of times.
All right.
Top 5 Fortune 500 leadership teams. Walmart.
So this is from public reporting. Go ahead, Walmart.
Yep. Walmart, no CISO. Amazon, no CISO. Apple, no surprise. CVS Health, really not a surprise. United Healthcare, again. There's no CISOs up there.
No, I'm not saying they don't have a CISO. I'm saying they don't list them on the web page, okay, which
Yes.
costs them no money, all right? So it's purely a marketing thing that says, hey, we think security is important. They don't even do that, all right? So we look at Fortune 500 financial companies.
Yep.
Do you know anybody at JP Morgan these days?
Oh yeah, I know CISOs for some of these companies. I know people who work for the CISOs at these companies. I worked at Bank of America for a dozen years. The CISO at Bank of America has great stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah,
his
he's one of our
CEO
great
has
guys,
stood
yeah.
up and said he has a blank check, but I shouldn't repeat that. The folks at JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, the leadership team is like, security is important and the CISO is really important, and they've got money to do what they need to do, and they don't have any listing anywhere in the support there. But they are, I mean, they're briefing, especially in banking, the CISOs are briefing the board every month and talking about security. They're well integrated into the rhythms and routines of the business, but they're not in the leadership team. They don't have the clothes of the emperor.
Not even in the marketing leadership, thought leadership kind of stuff, meaning that let's just slap his picture on the website so it lets people think that we think security is important. I mean, that's what I'm saying, right? All right, so the security vendors do a little bit better there, right? So let's see. This is based on revenue. These are the top 5 security vendors by revenue. I used to work at Palo Alto Networks. I didn't put that up there on purpose, okay? That's just what I pulled out of the newspaper, right?
Yep.
All right, there's the first exception. We finally got to the first CISO listed on the webpage, okay? Do you know Brad?
I do not. I do
He
not.
was over at Adobe
sure
for
he's a
many
great
years, I
guy.
think, right? Yeah, okay. And then CrowdStrike, the second exception. Everybody knows Sean Henry?
Yep.
All right, so we're looking at a 2 out of 5 there, okay?
Oh, no, it's worse than that. It's 2 for 15.
2 for 15, yeah.
Yeah.
2 for 5 for those, and then 2 for 15 for the rest, all right? So what are you guys thinking about? Is that a valid piece of evidence that we're not that important to the company? I don't want to sound negative, okay? That's not what this is about.
No, we're excited. We'll get there.
We'll get there, okay, we'll get there. So about 13%. This is not a perfect indicator, it's one piece of evidence, right? But it's just illustrative of where the CISO position is in the leadership's minds as we go forward, yeah?
Yep. So this is a really interesting graph, right? This is from 2021, but the numbers look pretty much the same. Fortune 1000 graph, revenue versus position on the Fortune 1000. It's got a nice little curve there. You can all see that. If I erase the numbers for a second, that same graph will tell you how much the CISO makes, how big the CISO's team is, how mature the CISO's program is. It's exactly the same curve. How many people are on the team? Same curve. There's a little bit of allowance if you're in financial services or healthcare or maybe at the top of energy and oil and gas. But same basic curve for every organization. And it's one of the reasons that we see so many fractional CISOs, because as you get out on the far end of that, those folks aren't hiring a CISO, they're hiring a director of security, a technology guy, and then trying to help them talk to the board and translate. So
let me interrogate that for a second. For those in the back who can't see that chart, because I can't even see it from here, right? Right. That's a revenue line for Fortune 1000 companies, right, Todd?
Yep.
And as it goes, and the dog legs up to the left, those are the most important companies.
Fortune 1, Fortune 2, Walmart number 1 in 2021, $560 billion. As you go down there, notice you've gone from 560 billion to 10 billion at number 304. And you're down at 5 billion by 626 or 526, and then it just goes on down from there, right?
And then you're saying that if you overlaid other lines like that, like how mature programs are, how
big the team is, how mature the program is, probably how many products are in their stack, how well developed are their processes. Every one of them will follow the same line.
And the point, I think, to all this is there's a reason why most of us aren't at the top of the company, right? Right? Unless you're over there on the dog leg left side of that, all right? We have very small resources to do what they ask us to do. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would argue that probably even the 10 billion number is too high to be buying most of the stuff over on the show floor. Mm-hmm. But
Well,
that's what everyone's trying to sell to.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. All right, so the point so that little introduction there is just to tell you that we have this fancy title. I've been a CISO 3 times. How many times you've been a CISO?
I've been in the seat 3 times plus half
Plus
a dozen
other things?
virtual companies.
And I get to wear all the clothes of the CISO, okay? But really, I'm walking around naked because I don't have any cheap clothes at all, all right? I'm in charge of security, but I'm not in charge of the business, or I guess is what I want to say, all right?
Yeah.
Now, you might say that, well, if you're, like we had a show of hands here, a lot of people are reporting to the boards these days. So that means that it's more important than what I was just saying, right? You get to influence the board, okay? So that might lend itself to saying, well, we're more important to the organization. This is Claudia Glover. She writes for Tech Monitor website, and she did a survey last year, okay? That only 12 of 321 CISOs surveyed actually sat on board seats. Right, and I know we've been talking about that for years, that what we really need to do is get some security people on the board so we can influence them about how to allocate funds and resources and things like that.
Yeah, so
Right.
while we're on that, everyone's seen, the SEC is saying, hey, you got to have a cyber guy, somebody that's familiar with cyber or a cyber expert on the board. Nobody knows what that means right now. There's some people that are saying, oh, you just take one of your board members and send them to a cybersecurity class for boot camp for board members, and then they're the cyber person on the board.
That's how I learned.
A lot of surveys, Fortune and other companies have done similar surveys with similar results. There's just not a lot of expansion of cyber experience, deep cyber experience like you get from a CISO on the boards.
Yeah, and like I said, there are some exceptions here, but and even Gartner predicts that by 2025, oh, I could have bent down to my legs, don't want to do that. Okay, all right, that there's going to be over 40% sitting on boards. There'll be somebody on the board who's designated as the cybersecurity expert, okay, overseeing cyber risk. That's what Gartner said. So that's really good news, right? And in fact, Todd and I think we might be able to retire on those jobs. That's what I thought we were going to be able to do, right? But I want to caution you with that stat. I don't think that they're going to put CISOs on board. They're going to put people on there that understand business risk, okay? They're not going to, that's not CISOs. Most of us in this room don't understand business risk. Right. In fact, I wrote a whole chapter on this on my book about cyber that you should all go out and buy. You should have brought it here so I could have signed it. Right? Right? But what we're going to do is find people on the board that understand risk to business and they can apply it to cyber. That's not going to be the CISO, I don't think. What do you think?
Well, I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later in our prediction and debate section. So we'll come back to this point about our CISO is going to get there.
Okay. So everybody with us so far? Anybody disagree with anything we said? Please say now, because we want to have a debate and we got like lots of minutes left to go. That's the best joke in the deck, right? So if you're not laughing at that, you're going to be dead by the end of this, right? I'm sorry. All right, Todd.
State of the CISO in one picture, right? What is the state
There
of
it
the
is.
CISO?
Done. Questions?
Yeah. No, everyone's been talking ChatGPT. I thought I'd go a different way. So I asked Dolly what's the state of the CISO. So if you click through here, Rick, Dolly told me this was the state of the CISO, and I didn't really think that was completely accurate. So I asked again, and they gave me a couple other pictures, and I want to point out that I literally asked Dolly for good, clean pictures of CISOs, and I got all these people with glowing eyes and technology accoutrements, and I'm not sure that any of them really reflect the state of the CISO. And I think it's pretty clear, and we're going to talk about it in just a second, that there's no way to capture the state of the CISO in one picture, but I really would like to have cool glowing eyes. So,
Does anybody identify with any one of those? If I was going to pick one for me, I want the one on the bottom on the left, right? The one that's straightforward. He's got the black jacket and the tie. That guy looks evil. He looks like he could get a budget approved. That's what I think, right?
well, I like the one with the glass window behind me talking to a board group, because I think that's the most important place for us to be, is talking about security to a group of business leaders.
I'm pretty excited that Dolly put a woman up at the top, right? Because we've been talking about diversity in the security ranks for a long time.
Well, I gotta allow for full disclosure. I picked where the pictures went.
Oh.
Dolly just made the pictures up for me.
All right, well, we're going to give Todd full credit for being a diverse leader in cybersecurity. Okay. All right, so
this is the other thing, right? And this is a big part of when we talk about the state of the CISO. CISOs have a lot on their mind. Rafiq Rehman has been doing this CISO mind map for a while. It's a great resource to look at. And you can see from the picture that there's a lot in that. Go ahead and click one more, because it's a little bit easier to see when you look at it here, and there's 13 big areas that he's got a picture of that fit into this as far as what kinds of things a CISO is responsible for. And you look at this, and the first thing you think is, wait, one guy is responsible for business enablement, compliance, budget, governance, legal and HR, and all the other things on this list. You're like, when does he have time to figure out who's attacked us last night? So if you go one more, the other piece that I thought was really interesting is Rafiq's take, and I'm trying to give him full credit for this, is these are the 6 areas that are a focus for the CISO as we look forward. And what's interesting about that as we talk about the state of the CISO is that this changes every single year. A few years ago when he first put this out, it was just, here's the mind map of all the stuff a CISO does. Now, he's got a date on it, and he says it's basically like milk. After a while, this spoils, and you have to go get the next one, and things change. The focus areas change. It's a lot of stuff for one person, the CISO, to keep track of. And I could bet that the variation of things you see in focus areas it is certainly as diverse as anything that the CEO or the COO is looking at. Probably more diverse.
If I may be permitted to go on a tangent here, all right? I've been a CISO for big companies who had lots of resources, and now I'm a CISO of a startup. We have 20 people, okay? And I've told Todd the story 20 times here at this conference, but I'm the security team at the startup, and I'm not allowed to touch anything because I'll break it, right? So that's how bad it is. The difference between a CISO with an organization that has lots of resources and a startup is completely different, and I want to highlight resilience. Okay, in a big company, I could do prevention, I can do detection, I could do zero trust, I can do intrusion kill chain prevention because I have resources to do that. With a startup, the only thing I can do is resilience, right? Because I have no money. So I'm not going to try to prevent anything. My entire focus, okay, is on surviving whatever bad thing happens and continue delivering service for the business. And it was an eye-opener for me when I took this job, but that was the way I had to do it. You get to talk to a lot of companies.
Well, I talk to a lot of companies, but this is where that graph of the Fortune 1000 comes in so handy, right? That's Fortune 1000, right? Outside of that, there's another 20,000 publicly traded companies. There's nonprofits. There's privately held companies. There's all kinds of other companies that need help, and all of them need somebody who can think about this kind of stuff to help protect the assets and the business the business operations of those businesses.
Anybody else come to that conclusion that resilience is the right way to go here and not other things? Couple, all right. Anybody want to go the other way? No? How many people want to get out and go get coffee? Okay. All right, so we're going to change gears a little bit and just talk about where it's gone. Todd and I have been in the industry since almost the beginning, right? We were both doing security stuff when the first CISO popped up. And like I said at the beginning of the talk, this presentation started with him, Todd and I arguing over coffee about where the direction of the CISO should be. I always wanted us to be at the very top on the executive board influencing the business, and I thought that's the way it was going to go when I started doing cybersecurity a long time ago. And I got to tell you, I was a bit pissed that we haven't been here yet, right? That we're not at the top.
You were frustrated.
I was frustrated.
When we talked, you were just frustrated that not only did it not look like they were getting there, it looked like it was getting farther and farther away. And I'm like, yeah, it's of course, because fundamentally the organization, and this is my real opinion, I don't think organizations know what to do with CISOs yet. We've only had them for 27 years, right? So it's not like accountants, right? The first accountants started counting grain in 2000 BC or 4000 BC. People figured out what to do with accountants. They figured out what to do with lawyers, and I'm not talking about rounding them up in the oceans or anything.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
But people don't know what to do with CISOs. I talk to headhunters who focus on the CISO role. I talk to companies, and they really have a hard time figuring out what the CISO should be. And the more it evolves, the farther it gets from figuring out that, oh yeah, that person should be sitting at the same table as the CEO.
And what prompted that was Todd was telling me what he was doing, his latest thing, right? He runs a fractional CISO company, right?
Yep.
Right? And I'm going, fractional CISOs, I thought we were going to be in charge of everything at the top as the business leaders. Now we're going to contract CISOs out as if it's not important, right? That was my being weird, okay, me being stupid about it, but that was my first impression, which caused this debate with me and Todd, which made you have to sit through this lecture. Okay?
Yeah. But what we've seen is this evolution of different kinds of CISOs at different companies at different points in time, and a continuing evolution. And so Rick's going to talk a little bit about each of these, and we're going to play back and forth.
Right, because you look at all these colors here, because I'm a PowerPoint ninja. I can put colors on my slide, right? There's lots of things you can do. What's great about the CISO role, even though we're not at the top, right, there's lots of things you can do. There's lots of different kinds of CISOs, which can have pretty satisfying work, which I've enjoyed for over 30 years, right? So I like to call it lots of flavors of being a CISO, right? And maybe not only one, you might be multiples of these things, which is really satisfying and fun to do, right? And I've had a fantastic career doing a bunch of this stuff, right? So pick one, maybe more than one, right? Well, let's go back to the history of it, right? Everybody knows Mr. Capps, right? He was the first CISO in 1995, worked for Citibank, is that right? Citibank. because they got hit by one of the first big cybercrime things, and their board and executive team said, we need someone to manhandle this and be in charge of it. You have a question over it?
Funny question?
No.
Funny thing is, he went through the entire job interview process, everything, worked out all the paperwork, and then after everything was signed, they told him that they needed him to help recover from this crisis, from this attack.
After he signed, right?
So yeah, did not know what he was walking into.
One thing to highlight there is, you notice there on the left side of the chart, the first CIO was hired 10 years before the first CISO, right? So that's another reason that the CISO kind of gets pushed into bureaucracy. The CIO's been around longer, right? And they have learned, many of them have learned how to talk business to the senior executive staff, right? Interesting enough, though, Steve Katz was not part of the executive team. Okay, he was not part there even then, back then. He did get board approved, so that was an interesting development. And as we were all observing this, we all said, "Oh, that's the future. That's where these positions are going to go."
Yeah, just a funny piece of history is I joined Nations Bank in 1998, just as Bank of America was being bought by them. My boss was the CISO, and she had come on in '96. So this went rapidly through the top 5 banks, and then it has hung out there for a long time before it's trickled down to the rest of the industry.
All right, so like Todd, we were looking around, we were young security professionals then, and we all said, "Oh, that's it. That's our career path. We're going to be just like Steve Katz. That's what we would like to do." Okay, and all right, and so, but it took a long time. I didn't get my first CISO gig for a decade later, right? So it was a slow moving progress. When was the first time you got here?
2015.
2015. There you go, right? So we're slow learners, all right?
Well, and I took a circuitous path, but yeah.
All right, but we all thought, but Todd and I thought it was a matter of time that we were going to be CISOs and we were going to be part of the executive team, and that was my frustration in all this, and that's not what has manifested. But here's how it's kind of popped up, right? The first thing that started to happen was we started to get these. The CEO started hiring CISOs to handle this kind of new thing that we didn't really know about, okay? So they started looking around who could do it. They knew they needed people that were technical. So they started hiring from the technical ranks to have this CISO position, right? So we got network managers, we got endpoint managers, we got help desk managers, and now these people are wearing the CISO title. And in fairness, it's not fair to them, right? Because, you know, they're technical managers, hadn't taken one business class, don't even know how to speak about business, right? But now we have a C-level title trying to manage that stuff. That's what you do.
Yeah, I think we can keep going here a little bit. We've got to catch up. We're 95 slides away yet.
Yeah, okay, so we got to you're saying to me, okay. So the first thing that happened is we were talking about ones and zeros, firewalls, and, you know, defense in depth. Okay, not quarterly earnings calls, not financial measures of, I can't even read that, GAAP and non-GAAP.
GAAP, non-GAAP, EBITDA.
We didn't know how to do that, and most of us still don't know how to talk about that.
Got to read a quarterly balance sheet, know what the proxy statement is, why it's in there, what's the board thinking about, what's the strategy of the business, how's cybersecurity going to impact that.
Took me a long time to figure all that out, right? But none of us knew how to do that, right? Okay. We were talking about vulnerabilities, we were talking about malware, we were talking about 0 days, and the board members and the senior executives were looking at us like the RCA dog. By the way, his name Clipper, okay? That's trivia for all of you, right? Because he doesn't know what's coming out of that thing, and the board members were saying, what is this guy talking about? Right? Why is he so annoying, right? So we had no idea how to talk about risk in terms that business leaders could follow, okay? And like I said before, many of us still don't know how to do that, okay? So we got pushed down into the bureaucracy. Most of us still work for CIOs. Some of us are peered with the CIO, but that's kind of mostly the way it's gone. Is there another model?
CIO, General Counsel is the second big one. CFO is pretty popular right now. Just to provide a little separation around budget between the CIO, who's fighting to do the digital transition and drive digital transformation, and the CISO, who's still just trying to lock down the basic things in the environment.
So the CEOs know they needed someone watching cybersecurity, okay, but they needed someone who could be a nerd buffer, all right, who could translate what was going on technically in terms that business people could use, someone who could speak business to the leadership team. All right, and they didn't have it. All right, so all that's going on when we first started doing CISOs, and the very next thing that comes up is the government started to say, we need to have some compliance laws in place to protect our businesses. So if you think about this time frame here, you know, we got HIPAA, we got GLBA, we got SOX, we got FISMA, I think we got one more, yeah, PCI. All those laws are passed. So organizations started directing CISOs to be compliance CISOs, to make sure we were following all the rules. You were part of some of that, right?
Oh, a tremendous part of it. I mean, it was really interesting because, of course, GLBA actually has a requirement for banks to present their security program at least annually to the board. And just having that as a requirement led to a whole lot of evolution around what the CISO at a bank had to do. And the biggest thing that they had to do for most of the last 20 years was just educate the board on what are the right measures, what's important about the maturity of the program, how is the CISO approaching managing that business aspect.
And you know, for most of us go to the RSA conferences, we know that compliance doesn't make you secure, but if you're one of those dog-leg companies that, you know, the Fortune 1000s, okay, that could be some serious money if you get out of whack to that, so someone has to manage it and make sure you meet all that. So those kinds of CISOs emerge. I keep dropping my stuff. All right. So the next thing that kind of popped up are these things called BISOs, Business Information Security Officers, right? And really because of the compliance laws that happened, and then a rash of worldwide viruses and hacks, very famous hacks happened that kind of scared the crap out of everybody. We got Egghead. Do you remember Choice Point? That was so huge back in the day. All the time, right? We got the card systems. We got TJX. I briefed TJX at RSA many years ago. It's a fantastic story, right? And so what happened then? We started hiring BISOs down in the business units who would focus on the individual business and the product and all that. They may or may not report to the overall CISO directly. Mostly indirectly, I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen a couple models, but a lot of times the BISO is like the lone person in the business who's saying, hey, we as security have all these security requirements and everything you're doing has to meet our corporate security requirements. Sometimes they get a team, sometimes they actually own parts of the technology and process. So there's a lot of different kinds of BISOs, but we started to see that fairly early on. And then that started to lead to this explosion of different kinds of CISOs, what Rick likes to call the Cambrian era.
That's nice lead-in, okay? Because what happened right around the middle of the 2000s was all this stuff, brand new things that changed our world, okay? AWS came online, okay, and then Microsoft Azure came online immediately after, and then Google put their cloud platform. So now we are in the cloud world. And let's not forget the mobile phone in 2006 that completely changed our world, right? We were talking at lunch today. You know, most of the times we don't really know when the world changes in terms of tech. When the iPhone happened, we all thought it was a cool gadget, but it's changed how we all do business these days, right? And it happened back in 2006.
One other thing that happened around this time that's really important is China hacked Google, 2008, 2009, I forget exactly. And people had been talking about this idea of a cyber Pearl Harbor. Oh, people will get religion, they'll get security religion when there's a cyber Pearl Harbor. When something really bad happens, then companies will invest in that. And I would tell you that, no, they won't. Because we've had Target, NotPetya, half a dozen other things since China hacked Google, and it's still, at most companies, after we get hacked, then I'll give you a big check to secure things. And before that, it's, you got to justify every penny.
So what that meant was, before this Cambrian explosion, we were all managing security back behind the perimeter. Okay, we would have our own data centers, our own headquarters. We would wrap electronic fences around it, and we would protect it behind the perimeter. And there was only one. Okay, and we thought that was hard to do. Okay, but now I call these things data islands. Okay, every cloud is a different place you have to protect. Every mobile device is a different place you have to protect. Right. So now we're managing these security stacks, multiple security stacks in multiple environments, multiple data islands. And you know, we thought managing one was hard. I know I did when I was doing it earlier. This is too hard to do. But now we got to do this. Okay, this is way too hard to do, right? Way too hard to do. And so CISOs had to step up to manage all this complexity.
And they had to figure out how to work with the CIO on that. And the CIO, meanwhile, is still trying to get their hands around this explosion in shadow IT, because anybody could go out and find that there was a really cool app to help me do sales on the sales team. I could just put on my iPhone and it was $5 and I was done. Or I could do something else and find another app to help me do some part of my business process. And I could just go buy it, expense it on the corporate credit card. No one was checking anything. And my data just explodes into where it is. And then how do I secure it?
So that's another kind of Cambrian explosion CISO. And then what he learned, okay, is this thing called the proxies. This is relatively new, okay? And so we had these things happen like SolarWinds. We've had Okta, we've had GitHub. I'm not trying to single these companies out. There's been a lot of these, but these are the ones we've heard of most likely.
A couple of password storage systems, you know.
Those guys work. And what we realized is the bad guys, okay, have realized that maybe going through the front door in a typical intrusion kill chain kind of way, they can go attack our suppliers and sneak in through the back door. So that has caused the vendors to try to ratchet up the security for their own products, okay? And so as updates come in, they can be secure. And so this is a new kind of CISO who's focused on products for vendors. They have all this experience because they went through the compliance stuff, they went through the BISO stuff, they went through the Cambrian explosion. They've got scars on their back to prove that they know what they're doing, and now we're going to apply that knowledge to making the products more secure. You really talk about
this is one that I feel very strongly is being missed by a lot of security people, a lot of security professionals, a lot of CISOs. They're used to focusing on the things that they can control and own, the firewalls, the endpoints, EDR, XDR, and what's really happening now is this shift into infrastructure as code, software as code, network as code, right? Software-defined networking. Everything is code, and if you haven't embraced the idea that the code is important and that you need people who speak code as part of the security team, you're missing what the next 5 years of evolution is going to see.
All right, CISO Advantage is near and dear to my heart, okay, because these are folks who have been CISOs before, but the vendors hire them because they have the experience and they can go out and explain how their product works and why CISO should listen to them, right? So it's a really interesting job. And the reason I know about it is I got hired to be the CSO for Palo Alto Networks, and I thought I was going to be the typical internal cybersecurity guy. What happened immediately is my boss started sending me out to all the things that he didn't want to go to, all right, or couldn't go to explain what the company was doing, all right? And by the time I left Palo Alto Networks, we had 15 CISOs around the world doing that task. They weren't salesmen, they weren't marketing people, they were company leaders who understood the roadmap and could explain to other CISOs what was going on, right? So that was all kind of starting around that, around 2013 or so. But I think the most famous one is Wendy Navarre, right? She's one of the most famous CISO evangelists we have, and you know a bunch of them, Tom.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here. It's an area where there's an opportunity to leverage the Rolodex, the relationships that you've built as a CISO to go talk to other CISOs. It's an important expansion of what a CISO means and how do companies get the right information to people to help you make decisions and build stronger programs. And part of it relies on taking those people out of a real CISO role where they built a program and help translate now how are different products involved in helping you improve that. And I'll repeat something I told somebody early on. The products are not going to save us. It's process, it's people that are really going to save us. It's what leads to resilience is process and people, not tools.
One of the skills this job leverages is most security professionals' ability to take really complex things and boil them down to something that somebody who's really smart can understand. They're not security experts, but they're smart. So if you have that talent that you can take really complex things and tell a story about it, that's what a CISO evangelist is, right? So if you have that skill, that's something you might want to pursue. All right, the next one that pops up is the risk CISO, right? And I say this because around this time frame, we all started realized that we had no idea how to predict risk, cybersecurity risk specifically. Right? How many people have read the FAIR book or fans of the FAIR methodology, right? One of my favorite books, okay, how to measure everything in cybersecurity risk. What? I missed something?
Nope.
Okay.
Just my opinion of FAIR, so.
Well, yeah, okay, I'm gonna talk about that in a second, right? So we all started thinking about really it's not about vulnerabilities and anti-malware, it's really about how do you reduce risk to your organization, right? And I'm gonna talk, I love those guys, I've interviewed them many times, talked to them about it. But what I wanted at the end of those books, at the end chapter, to say, okay, I understand it now. How do you do it in your organization? And those chapters aren't in those books, right? So very frustrating. They're best books ever to give you a different view of the world, a primer on how do you think about cybersecurity risk, but they didn't actually give you any tools to do it in the real world, right? So we all started thinking about business risk, and so I wrote that chapter in my book, right? So if you want to know how to do it, go read that, right? I'm just telling you. All right, that was my
privacy and data protection. We've all seen the rise of GDPR, California law. We're seeing a lot more regulation. Even where there's not regulation here in the US, there's more and more sense of how companies should and shouldn't handle our information, how they should protect it. Go ahead into the next slide. DevSecOps, actually this is what I just talked about, right? If you aren't embracing software as security, security as software, then you're not where you need to be yet. And it's a couple of good pieces.
Okay, if you know the history of DevSecOps is fascinating, by the way. Just tell the Google SRE story. You know the story, right? And when Google was just a search engine, they didn't have all the stuff they have now. The leadership team decided to give network management to the developers. Okay, not to the traditional people that turn the cranks on all the routers and the firewalls and all that. They gave it to the developer. So when you give a task like that to a bunch of programmers, what do? They automate it, okay? They automated it all, right? They built a system of systems through software about 6 years before we even had a name of DevOps, right? Amazon did the same thing, about the same time frame, right? So those two big Silicon Valley companies figured that out early on, right? And what my big frustration is that the security team didn't go with them. We've kept in our little boxes. We're not going to learn how to program. We're not going to learn how to be DevOps people. We're going to continue to do SOC operations like we've always done it, and we're being left at the station. I don't know if you...
Absolutely. No, we've got to click through a few more here. We've got about 5 minutes left, so.
All right. Oh man, we got to cut through a lot. Okay. These are the best slides. You're going to have to email me about the...
Yeah.
So we're at the end of this then, okay? And the reason I'm talking about this is this is not where I thought the CISO position would be. And I was a little frustrated about this in the early. I will tell you though, I changed my mind after a year arguing with Todd about it, right? Because it doesn't need to be where I thought it should be. It is a very rich set of jobs that we can do that is so much fun. I can't believe that. Let's do this, right? So I am changed my mind about this altogether.
Yeah, it's a continuing evolutionary story about what does a CISO do, how does a CISO do it, and how does that impact business? And we're like at the beginning of a whole new journey. It's like we've been walking up the mountain and we turn the corner and we see there's a whole lot more mountain, but it's a pretty exciting view and a lot of cool stuff that's still yet to happen.
All right, so we are at the end of this.
Not quite.
You want to walk us through these things?
Yeah, so this isn't what we thought it would be. And where we've talked and argued and discussed this, we really think that it's a lot more rich and complex. We've talked about this. There's going to be more kinds of CISOs in the future. Go ahead to the next slide, because this is what we think you need to be thinking about in the next week, month, years of your career. It's still evolving. It's going to keep evolving. But there are a couple of things that are important. One is that you need to be thinking about your career goals. We've heard work-life balance more since COVID started than we'd ever heard it before. People are taking that seriously, and I think there's a lot of opportunities coming because of that. It's important to maintain technical currency, and it's important to build an understanding of business, because you've got to be able to talk to the business leaders to rise to the top of this security organization that's going to be coming in various companies in various ways. So we have to become storytellers. One of the things Rick and I both try very hard to do in our day-to-day lives is tell stories, use analogies, talk about how cyber is like something else, look at becoming an expert in risk forecasting. We've got to think about the role of code, as I've said 15 times already, and resilience. We all have said for 10 years here at the conference, it's not if, it's when you get hacked. And when you get hacked, how quickly you can restore operations is critical. It's the most important thing to the business.
So the two gaps I see, I get to talk to a lot of CISOs in my job, right? The two gaps I see are listed on the slide, right? We have to learn how to forecast risk with enough precision to make business decisions with, right? And it doesn't have to be incredible precision, this has to be good enough precision, and we can do it. There's ways to do that. You should read some of the books that we listed on the slide deck, right? And the next thing is you have to embrace DevSecOps, right? We are right now stuck in our old ways of doing it, and the IT guys are, deploying 10 new pieces of code every day, and we're still stuck in the SIEM land and the SOAR land, and we're doing everything manually, and we are getting farther and farther apart. So if I was going to suggest anything to CISOs in this room and future CISOs, those are the two things I would concentrate on.
Yep. Last slide. I think you and I have a little bit of a different opinion about where things go from here, right? I think that we have some shared security principles. I would love to say security should be driven by a leader with vision who's going to pull everybody along and really drive a business understanding of security. But my experience is that those singular leaders are so hard to find that most companies are not going to be successful waiting for some security expert to come down from the mountain with his tablets and tell us where we're all going to go for the security future.
Well, that's everybody in here, right? So that's what I think it is. That's what and the reason Todd and I argue about this is because I want to be that guy, right?
Yeah.
I want to be the person, I have that, I want to be in charge of it all. Give it to me, right? And I don't like this distributed, you guys make it up on your own in your own little silos. I think that's ridiculous, but Todd and I...
Agree to disagree and have fun arguing about it, because there's just no way. I love you, Rick, but you're not that good.
You're not the only one that's told me that, right?
Yeah. And I'll freely admit I'm not that good, as much as I would like to be the guy with the singular vision and tell you, here's the future and here's how we're going to secure company XYZ, the next company that I work with. It's just not, it's not going to happen.
We agree to disagree, right? Because, yes, I agree that I don't know it all, right? But I want to have a singular way forward, right? And I don't want people making it up underneath me. They're going maybe against each other in the strategy and the tactic. That's my...
So I think we might have 1 minute for a question.
Right.
You and I can hang around outside. Yeah, I see a question in the back.
First of all, two comments to the question. First, thank you very much for a great presentation, especially that evolution of the CISO role.
Give us 5 stars. RSA really pays attention to that.
In addition to that, there was a presentation on Monday about cyber risk appetite. And the premise of that presentation was the role of the CISO now is to work with the board and senior leadership to get a consensus on cyber risk appetite, and the entire information security program gets built from that. Well, my question is this: you said something very interesting about CISOs starting to sit on board of directors. Wouldn't that not be a fiduciary conflict of interest, because the board's role to hold management accountable for risk?
I didn't mean to say that the CISO of the organization should be on the board. I meant that CISOs are, one job possibility is that you may be tagged to be on a board of some other company.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very clear fiduciary problems and other things. The members of the board of directors have to be independent of the company, with the rare exception being the CEO/chairman of the board.
Yeah.
And even there, I've been talking to some board members. Board members like to see a very strong independent board leader, independent director on the board if the CEO is also the chairman of the board.
So something that the key is not to have a CISO on the board, but certainly have independent access.
Well, you might have a retired CISO. A CISO from Boeing might sit on the board at Duke. A CISO from Bank of America might sit on the board at Ford Motor Company. You're not going to want to pull the CISO of Bank of America to be on the board at Citibank, but you might pull them after they've retired onto the board at Ford or Boeing or some other organization
And that's the
outside their
government
specialty.
You know, 45% is people up at CISOs will be on board somewhere helping them think about cybersecurity.
And on the banking to low too, it's already happening with large banks. You like to see if they have at least one dedicated board member, particularly on the risk committee.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
has a very strong IT background or a cyber background. It's not required by regulation.
Yeah. But yes, yeah, and I'm not surprised, again, banks have adopted a lot of this stuff very early and faster, and so we see them as leading. Rick, any last words?
No, just thank you everybody for staying in the whole way. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.